everyone. I hope you're all getting in line for drinks or drinking. Please raise your glass. This is Noir at the bar. You need to be sufficiently lubricated. Okay? What goes better with Noir writing than drinking? Yes?
Not a thing.
Not a thing. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for supporting the second annual Bay Area Book Festival. We're really thrilled that you came, and we're thrilled with all the people that are on our Noir at the Bar talk. We're going to be doing something where they read, and you will be getting a sample of their work from maybe some of the authors are not known to you. So we have a Nordic Noir contingent, we have local people, and I just want to say at the beginning that Dominique Stansberry, for those of you who are his fans, who writes wonderful San Francisco Noir, he has a medical issue and he couldn't be here today and he's very sorry. So, sorry about that. He says hello to everyone. So, thank you for coming. I'm Cara Black. I write mysteries set in Paris. They're a bit noirish, but not as noir as these guys. And I'm local. I would like to introduce the person to my right, Anders de la Motte. He made his debut in 2010 with Game, which won the Swedish Academy of Crime Writers' First Book Award, and he received a second Swedish Academy of Crime Writers Award for Ultimatum. He's a former security police officer, so be careful, okay? Former. And he was, but until recently, director of security at one of the world's largest IT companies. He's currently an international security consultant. His newest book is Memorandum. Please welcome Anders.
Thank you. So I get to start. Great.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Hi, I'm Anders de la Motte. I'm Swedish, so that it's nothing wrong with the PA system. It's a foreign accent. In Scandinavia, we're not that used to doing readings, actually. We do interviews and we do panels, but not that much reading. So pardon if we're a bit nervous, because we're not used to doing this, and especially not in a language that's really not our first language. So I'll do my best. Memorandum is well, it says a thriller on it, so it's pretty self-explanatory there. I've written 3 books before this one, and I've stayed away from writing about police officers since, well, I used to be one. And for the first time I decided to write about a police officer, and I wanted to give it a different twist. I wanted to write about a police officer investigating something, but not necessarily a murder, not to start with at least. So I thought I would write something about someone with a secret, and finding out what the secret is. It could be a murder, it could be something else. So I ended up with this book, and I'll read you the backflip, which is a lot easier than anything else. David Sorak, the main character, he's a handler at the intelligence unit in the Stockholm police force, identifying, recruiting, and wrangling anyone who can support the police in their battle against organized crime. And David is very good at what he does: manipulation, bribes, threats, anything goes as long as he delivers. Other agents can do nothing but watch jealously as his top-secret, high-level informant Janice rockets David to success. But after David crashes violently into a wall of a tunnel during a high-speed chase, he wakes up in the hospital with no memory at all of Janice or the past 2 years of his life. David only knows that he has to reconnect with Janice to protect himself and his informants before outside forces bring the whole network crashing down. Fortunately, he has his supportive friends and colleagues to help him rebuild his life, or does he? So that's the setting. So the investigation is very much internal, actually. It's David trying to investigate himself and find out, what he was doing before this crash and what happened to him. And I'll actually start with the very first chapter. So, Saturday, November 23rd. Blue lights. That's his first lucid thought after opening his eyes. He can't have been unconscious for more than a few seconds, a tiny micropause in his head. But the world seemed so strange, so unfamiliar, as if he weren't quite awake yet. Blue reflections are dancing around him, in the rearview mirror, bouncing off the concrete walls, the roof, the wet road surface, and even off the shiny plastic details of the dashboard. A car. He's in the driver's seat of a car going through a long tunnel. The pain catches up with him. He has a vague memory of it from before he blacked out. A brilliant ice blue welding arc cutting straight through the left-hand side of his skull and turning his thoughts into thick sludge. He can even identify the way it smells. Metal, plastic, electricity. Something's happening to his body, something serious threatening his very existence, but weirdly he doesn't feel particularly frightened. He tightens his grip of the steering wheel, feels the soft leather against the palms of his hand. A pleasant, reassuring sensation, and for a moment he almost gives into it and lets go, tracing those smooth molecules all the way back into unconsciousness. Instead, he squeezes the wheel as hard as he can and tries to get his aching head to explain what is happening to him. David Serac. Your name is David Serac, and what? The car is still driving through the tunnel, and one of the many incomprehensible instruments on the dashboard must be telling him that he's going too fast. Way too fast. He tries to lift his foot from the accelerator pedal, but his leg refuses to obey him. In fact, he can't actually feel his legs at all. The pain is growing increasingly intense, yet in an odd way simultaneously more remote. He realizes that his body is in the process of shutting down, abandoning any process that isn't essential to life support until the meltdown in his head is under control. Your name is David Serac, he mutters to himself. David Serac. Various noises are crackling from the speakers. Music, dialing tones, fractured, agitated voices talking over each other. He looks in the rearview mirror, and for a moment he imagines he can see a movement, a dark silhouette. Is there someone sitting in the back seat? Someone who can help him? He tries to open his mouth and sees the silhouette in the mirror do the same. He can see stubble, a tormented but familiar face. He realizes what that means. There's no one else here. He's all alone. The light in the rearview mirror is blinding him, making his eyes water. The voices on the radio are still babbling, louder now, even more agitated. The shutdown of his body is speeding up. It's spreading from his legs and up towards his chest. Police, one of the radio voices yells. The word forces its way in and soon fills the whole of his consciousness. Police, police, police. He looks away from the rearview mirror and laboriously turns his head an inch or so. The effort makes him groan with pain. Your name is David Serac, and... Some distance ahead he can see the rear lights of another car. Alongside them, a large warning sign, an obstruction of some sort, and an exit ramp. The rear lights are suddenly glowing bright red. He ought to turn the wheel and follow that car ahead of him out of the tunnel. His every instinct tells him that would be a sensible thing to do. But the connection to his arm seems to be on the way of shutting down as well, because all he can manage is a brief, jerky movement. The obstruction is getting closer, a large concrete barrier dividing the two tubes of the tunnel. The reflective signs are shimmering in the glare of the car's headlight. He tries to look a few seconds into the future and work out whether he's in danger of a collision, but his brain is no longer working that way. The shutdown reaches his face, making his chin drop. The distance to the barrier is still shrinking. Police. The word is back, even more insistent this time, and suddenly he realizes why. He's the police. The blue lights are coming from his own car. His name is David Serac. He's a police officer, and the pain in his head eases long enough for him to be able to piece together a coherent chain of thought. What is he doing here? Who is he chasing? Or is he the one being chased? The lights in the rearview mirror are getting closer and closer, burning into his head. Fear overwhelms him, sending his pulse racing. The ice blue pain returns even stronger this time. His eyelids flutter. All the noise around him fades away into the distance. He tries to remain conscious, fighting the shutdown process, but there is no longer anything he can do. A brief jolt shakes his car, but he hardly notices it. The shutdown process is almost complete, and he is more or less unconscious again, free from pain, fear, and confusion. All that remains is a stubborn, scarcely noticeable signal in his tortured brain, an electrical impulse passing between two nerve cells that refuses to let itself be shut down, not until it's completed its task. Just before his car crashes into the concrete barrier, the second before the vehicle goes from being an object with clearly defined parameters to a warped heap of scrap metal, the impulse finally reaches its target. In a single, crystal clear moment, he suddenly remembers everything. Why he is in this car, what it's all about. Faces, names, places, amounts. The reason why all of them, every last one of them, must die. All because of him, because of the secret. An immense feeling of relief courses through his body, followed by regret. His name is David Serac. He's a police officer, and he's done something unforgivable.
Well, I know what I'm going to buy right after this panel. Thank you, Antonin. Next to Anders is Kelly Stanley, local girl from San Francisco, who I call a poetess in her mystery writing. She is the Macavity Award-winning creator of the Miranda Corby series, set in 1940 San Francisco, featuring one of crime's most arresting heroines, according to Library Journal. Critics have compared her work to icons such as Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler. City of Ghosts is her next novel, and she'll be reading something from that. And this is one of my favorite people, and your local author, so please support her. Kelly Stanley!
So before I begin, I'm going to read you a snippet from a later chapter in City of Ghosts. And I should explain a little bit about who Miranda is so that you'll understand where she's coming from. Miranda was born from two big impulses that touched me as both a writer and a person. First of all, I'm a longtime Noir fan, both film and literary. And I'm tired of the misogyny that is not only inherent in that particular subgenre, but in Western literature itself. I have a master's degree in classics. I spent 7 years in academia, and I can trace this stuff all the way back to the 6th century BCE with archaic Greek poets, comparing women, types of women to types of animals. It didn't change much by the time we get to James M. Cain and we have a masterpiece like Double Indemnity, which is admittedly a masterpiece, but I mean, what are we looking at? We're looking at women who are smart, sexy, successful, ambitious, and they're bitches. They're bad. They're always leading some schmuck around by, apparently a ring in his nose.
I think we should go into that.
Thank you. And I got tired of it. So, I thought I'm going to write a noir, and I'm going to create a character that is grounded in reality, but is a femme fatale, with all those characteristics of a femme fatale, except I'm going to make her the protagonist. She's going to be the Seamus. And that was the impetus for Miranda Corby. The second impetus is that, as a historian, I find that we tend, in America, to glamorize certain eras and denigrate others. One era that we resolutely look at through rose-colored glasses is the 1940s. The greatest generation, the greatest war, everyone was good and noble, everyone self-sacrificed. Frankly, that's bullshit. The 40s were a lovely period. We had less pollution, we had gorgeous music. Benny Goodman played the mark, women wore gloves and hats, guys dressed up, Muni ran on time. But it was also an era where people couldn't buy property because they were black. Other people were forcibly sterilized because they couldn't pass certain tests. Jews weren't allowed to apply for jobs. That's the reality of the 1940s. And I wanted to recreate the time and not shirk away from showing both the brutality and the beauty. No, not everybody slept in 2 twin bed sets with a nightstand in the middle. As I'm sometimes asked if the stuff in my book is real. Miranda, for example, was an escort before she became a detective. And I'm sometimes asked if escorts were the same in 1940 as they are today. So, as I said, we have a lot of work to do in reconstructing the past, the recent past, and this is my attempt to do it. And City of Ghosts, which I'm going to be reading from, is the third of my novels. It started with City of Dragons in 2008, 2010. And in City of Ghosts, the section I'm going to be reading you from, Miranda has a client, a rich woman from Burlingame, who's just been found murdered. So Miranda's name is in the paper. She's not real happy about that, particularly because she's also been approached by a man to whom she owes a favor. a man who helped her secure her PI license, a man who happens to work for the State Department. This book brings her to Berkeley because this State Department guy is suspicious of a professor at the university who he thinks may be selling secrets to the Nazis. It's true, there were Nazi spies in San Francisco this time. There were a lot of Nazi sympathizer groups. The German-American Bund was located in Oakland. There were all kinds of militant right-wing hate groups here then, and you can see where I'm leading with this. 50, 70, 80 years doesn't make too much of a difference, does it? So, without further ado, the section here, Miranda has just found out about getting in the paper. She's thinking to herself about coming to Berkeley and following this professor and trying to figure out whether or not he is indeed a German spy, and she knows there's a connection between his activities and some art, apparently stolen art from Europe. So, City of Ghosts. Miranda picked out 10 rolls of Lifesavers, 5 butter rum and the rest peppermint. Gladys busy with another customer, but shooting Miranda meaningful looks. She shoved a few examiners forward. Miranda picked up a paper. Mrs. Hart was front page news right under the World War. At least money could buy you that. She flung the pages back. There it was, page 5, photo of her from February. Quote, according to some sources, Mrs. Hart had just left the offices of Miranda Corby, the notorious female private investigator, who earlier this year, Mary, did you see? You're notorious. I bet that brings in the customers. Say, sugar, you're looking awfully white. You want some candy or something? Here, have a Baby Ruth. Gladys unwrapped a candy bar and thrust it at Miranda, her blue eyes warm with concern, blonde curls bouncing in an upswept hairdo. Miranda took a bite, chewy caramel and chocolate, delicious. Thanks, Gladys, I better get lunch. I'll be down when I can. We'll catch up later. Thanks for saving the newspapers. Her friend's practiced fingers played the register. Gladys looked up, said, any Chesterfields? 2 packs. The blonde smiled, shook her head. You're really cutting down, Mary, and still not gaining weight. Just don't starve yourself, sugar. Besides, that Inspector Gonzalez likes you just the way you are. She gave a broad wink to Miranda along with the package and change, then turned to help a young man in a gray pinstripe suit with freshly combed hair and a wilted boutonniere. What'll it be, mister? Lucky Strike or Camels? Miranda walked away, remembering how Gladys had saved her life in February. The counter girl would jump and squeal if she knew Gonzalez had proposed. Goddamn Gonzalez. Poster boy for the nice guy, the good cop, tall, dark, and handsome type. The rich boy from Mexico who thought a quick pulse and a French kiss meant fucking matrimony. The Juke at Tasconi's was creaking out, "This is no dream," when she walked up to the register, red counter stools crowded with various degrees of businessmen, newsmen from the Hearst building, and bored phone operators slumped and quiet at a large table. This must be love, the way I feel. Miss Corby, you want something to go? Yeah, hamburger, medium rare, sliced tomatoes, french fries, and an iced tea. How's Sam? Jerry gave her a big grin, freckles on his nose spreading to his cheeks. Can't complain, Miss Corby. He brought in a winner at Bay Meadows the other day. Bought us all expensive cigars. Good for him. Listen, I'm in a hurry. Can you bring up the food? Number 421? Sure thing, Miss Corby. I know where your office is. He stuttered a little, getting it out. You were in the paper today. Don't believe everything you read, kid. Miranda strode quickly to the elevators. God damn it. Examiner coverage on Mrs. Hart would make being Jean Rogers or Marion Gouchard or anyone else that much harder. She'd need a wig, maybe some special makeup in addition to a costume. She reached her door, gold and black letters, slightly faded. Automatically reached into her purse and pulled out a pack of Chesterfields and the Ronson Majorette, lit the stick, first spark. Inhaled gratefully. Lifesavers didn't come in tobacco flavor. Miranda walked to the window and fought open the sash. Shouts of newspaper sellers, men with 5 o'clock shadow and flat blue caps with patched knees on their dungarees, boys with dirt on their cheeks and fingers, flower vendors pushing dahlias. Buy one for your girl, mister. You won't be sorry. She'll make it worth your money. June sunlight, pale rays, bounced off brownstone on the young building across the street, resting on Lotta's fountain, gathering strength to assault the coming fog. Church bells tolled on mission, percussion for the trains, squeal of brakes and clash of the metal, symphony of rumble clang, dong, dong, dong. Foghorns began to bellow beyond the orange bridge on the northwestern side, and mixed with the sellers' calls and the chant of the bells, the workaday machinery of hardened metal and harder men, while songs tinkled from the pool hall on Kearney and Tasconi's juke, fed a steady diet of nickels, played Maybe, Dolores O'Neill, Mourning Forgotten Love. She closed her eyes, letting the music carry her. Memory flashing like the faded sunshine, receding, drifting. Hold them tight, all she had, all she was, pain only bearable because it was the record of her life. Maybe her mother wasn't her mother. Maybe she was risking her life for a con, a grift, and it hurt. God, it hurt. No Johnny. No Johnny. No Johnny. The wind bit her face and she opened her eyes again. Maybe you'll sit and sigh, wishing that I were near. Her left hand balled into a fist and her knees were trembling. Walking into Nazi Germany, he said. No protection, no rescue. Spies and jail time, worse than death. She'd chew her goddamn leg off before being shackled. She leaned out the window, looking down Market toward the ferry building, shining like Sodom, as holy as the promised land. Still there, her city. Mother and father and lover, always changing, always constant, never untrue. San Francisco, built and rebuilt, wicked and always willing, forever old, forever young, smelling of sex and sin and newly minted money. Guardian, lover, mentor, the cobbled streets and dim lights, and salt-stained tears and wave-lapped piers, the smell of fresh-baked sourdough and juke from Sam Woe's, grappa in front of the Italian saints, quiet Victorians nodding on quiet streets, ice shaking in cocktails at the top of the Mark. Lying city, dying city, Lazarus and the Phoenix, wide open and proud of it, a city built on stolen sand and abandoned ships, reclaimed by the ones that stayed and built for the ones that left. A city made by dreamers who died paupers and paupers who lived like kings, dream keeping them alive in the only way that mattered. City of dreams, broken or not, it didn't matter. No need for a city of angels when there's gold in the mountains and cars that climb hills and bridges that span seas. Miranda watched the smoke from her Chesterfield float across the do not walk sign and curl around a lamppost, caressing the dark metal before gently falling apart, falling to earth. She closed her eyes and said a prayer to San Francisco.
Woo! Kelly. And we just lived there, right? Yeah, we just lived there. Ali and I lived there. Okay. Amazing. We're going to hear, this is Stefan Thunberg right here. He's one of Scandinavia's most celebrated screenwriters. Recently, he published a new novel, The Father, Made in Sweden. It's co-written with crime novelist Anders Rosland. This book fictionalizes Thunberg's experience growing up in a family of course, bank robbers. Okay? Dubbed Militärligan, I say it wrong, the military gang by the media. DreamWorks recently optioned the film rights to the book. Thunberg's screenwriting credits include the popular TV series Wallander, some of us know that, Van Viteren, as well as two of Sweden's biggest box office successes in recent years, Hamilton and I'm in love with the guy in Hamilton. I love that. And Jagarna too. Please welcome Stefan Thunberg.
Thank you. I'm going to try to read. As Anders said, we are not so used to read in Sweden. I'm going to read in Swinglish, so you have to... This book is about... It's based on a true story. It's based on my story. It's based on my brother's story. It's based on what they did in the 90s in Sweden. They robbed banks. And we are 4 brothers, and 3 of them robbed banks. I wanted to be an artist. So there's a bit of a conflict there. So I'm the black sheep in my family.
The white sheep.
Yeah, but for them I'm the black sheep. So the book is 2 parts. Book is one from the past when they are kids, and it's the second part is when they have grown up and become bank robbers, and the way they did it. An important thing in the book is that it's about my father and the character in the book. The father in the book is an immigrant from the foreign Yugoslavia. He's from Croatia. He was from Croatia, and he came to Sweden in the 60s. And my brother started rob banks in the 90s. So we grew up in the 70s in Sweden. So the first part I'm gonna read for you is from when they are kids, and the oldest brother in the family, his name is Leo, has been beaten up by 2 other guys in the neighborhood. And now the father, called Ivan, is going to learn him to hit back. And that's what the paragraph this is about. But I'm going to read a lot of F words here, so I don't know how it is here.
We're in a bar.
Yeah, it's in a bar, so drink. So this is the first. So a father going to learn his son to hit back. Felix's foot trembles a little as he stretches up toward the cabinet and the mama's green medical box on top of it. He sits down on the lid of the toilet seat and opens the box up, taking out bandages and surgical tape. With these items in hand, Felix runs across the brown carpet of the hallway, into the living room, and across its wooden floor that always cold and creaks when Papa walks on it. That damn Finn and his stupid denim jacket. He had heard what Hasse and Kekkonen did to their prisoners, how they scraped sharp stones against their armpits until they bled, and then poured salt into the wound. And what they did to Buddha, who lives on 3rd floor and was taken prisoner during the neighborhood war and is scared to death of spiders. They bound him and then gathered daddy long legs from all over the cellar and put them all in a cardboard box. Then they opened the bottom of the box, and Hasse pushed it over Buddha's head, and Kekkonen taped the open flaps around Buddha's neck. The daddy long legs crawled over his face and into his hair and got caught in his ears and nose and mouth. Felix has seen Buddha afterward, how he'd walk slowly back to his own street, a prisoner of war who didn't know where he was or who he was. He and Leo had been lucky. Felix steps out onto the balcony, cold air in his face. He passes the elastic bandage and surgical tape to Papa, leans over the edge of the railing, looking at the asphalt of Skogås. Leo sits in one of the striped camping chairs, his cheeks a little red. Your knuckles will toughen up, but for now we'll have to do this instead. Protect them. You have to be able to practice more often and for longer. Papa takes Leo's hands, stretches them out, and winds the bandage around his knuckles. When your knuckles make contact, follow through. Continue the movement with your whole body. And it's then, at that moment, you go through him. The gauze is wound over his knuckles and down between his thumbs and index finger, and then diagonally over the wrist, around and around. Make a fist. Leo clenches his bandaged right hand and then waits until Papa hits it with the palm of his hand. How does it feel? Good. The same thing with the left hand. Then Leo punches the air several times in front of Felix, hopping and running through the living room and the hall, punching at nothing again and again. Papa follows him back into the room and gets down on his knees again and boxes the mattress so that it thuds and shifts. What are their names? Hasse and Kekkonen. Papa punches at his swaying mattress, then punches at his own shoulder. This is how fucking Hasse and Kekkonen do it. Their punches stay right here, at the shoulder. All of their movements stop here. He raises his right arm to the mattress, turns the right side of his upper body into it, and continues the move, following through. And this is how you should punch. You punch through them. You go through, straight through. Papa moves one small step at a time until he's standing right behind Leo. Felix can't see much more than 2 backs, but doesn't dare go any further into the room. He stretches himself, stands on tiptoe in the middle of the threshold, and it seems like Papa has hold of Leo's arm. You aim for the nose and it explodes like a huge fucking water balloon. And their brains are in there, floating in liquid like a goldfish in a goldfish bowl. And when you hit the nose first and then the chin, the brain bounces. Hasse and Kekkonen's fucking little brain sloshing against the walls of the goldfish bowl. Leo hits again. Nose, chin. One more time. Nose, chin. One more time. Nose. Get your body behind it. Chin. Follow straight through. Nose. The fucking brains. Chin. They should bounce and splash. After a while, Felix's toes start to hurt, so he lays down and watches as Leo's arm hits the mattress from underneath. And it almost looks funny, as if it's not happening for real. He's still laying there when Papa steps over him and goes to the kitchen and the stove and the pan for one more glass of thunder honey before he has to put on the work clothes that have been hanging a little too long in the hallway. There's a job that Papa has to tend for, so that in a few days it might be his. Felix watches the feet on their way out through the front door and hears the 2 quick bangs as the elevator opens and closes, then feels the calm that falls over the whole apartment whenever Papa leaves, as if there's suddenly more room inside. That was the first one. And then I'm gonna hop 20 years, no, I'm gonna hop to when they have grown up and they're gonna rob their first bank together, and they're sitting in the van on the way to the bank. Leo watched his little brother unbutton his bulletproof vest and onto the waist and put the strap 1 notch tighter. They were crouching in the back of one of 2 vans Felix had stolen late last night. They couldn't see outside, but Leo nevertheless knew exactly where they were, exactly how far they had to go. What if I get stuck? Asked Vincent. Stuck? Replied Leo. What if I get stuck in the window? Which window? The cashier's window, when I'm on my way through. He was going to rob his first bank in 4 minutes and 12 seconds. You won't get stuck. But if I do, Vincent, look at me, you won't get stuck. They'd been looking for a van with a handyman's insignia on its sides. And they found the perfect one, a huge logo saying Heating Solutions, a vehicle that could be driven up close to a bank without setting off any immediate alarms. And everyone who saw it would be able to give a clear description later. Leo grabbed the rear door handle for balance as the van leaned the last roundabout. 20 yards left, a noticeable bump as they left Handelsvägen, crossed the pavement and rolled onto the Svedmyra Square. The last stretch, tires braking on wet asphalt, a sucking sound gliding along the floor. Leo straightened his ear protectors and verified that the microphone was firmly connected to the collar of his jumpsuit, waiting while Vincent, Jasper and Felix adjusted their own ear protectors. Now they pulled down the cloth over their faces, or from this distance, it looked as if someone had cut 3 pieces out of a magazine and pasted them directly onto the fabric. Paper eyes, paper mouth. Mickey Mouse! Jasper smiled as he held his hands against his ear protectors, which stuck out like big round balls under the black fabric. Mickey Mouse, damn it! Jasper, that's enough, snapped Leo. Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse. Enough! Leo had only just calmed Vincent down. Jasper's nervousness was harder to watch. A man preparing for adult violence by acting like a child. The first real bank robbery. They all had their own way of coping. Testing. The transmitter was in the right-hand pocket of his jumpsuit, index finger on the small angular button, and he spoke softly. 1, 2, 1, 2. His voice in their heads, the voice that would soon be leading them. Felix, the police scanner. Felix had parked the van in such a way that he was able to see the entire bank in the side mirror. And in the rearview mirror, he could see the 3 bank robbers preparing to jump out. Set to the right frequency, encrypted, we know exactly where the cops are. Good. Vincent, yes. We're gonna go straight through them. Okay, Leo, straight through. The sound of 4 automatic weapons being loaded simultaneously ran around the walls and floor. In 5, the time was 5:50 p.m. 4, Leo put his hand gently on the rear door handles. 3, 2, wait! Felix turned the rear view mirror. There's an old man with a walker on his way out, and there's an old lady behind him. Leo lowered his weapon, counted down. Vincent had been calm, Jasper focused. It had been the time. Felix, Jesus, they have time. We'll just let them walk out. There's no old man with a walker, no old lady. From now on, they simply do not exist. We go straight through them. The only thing that's in there is our money. Are you finished? Felix, an old man with a walker, an old lady. Felix turned the rearview mirror a little. They're out now. 8 steps to the glass door of Handelsbank. Leo first, Vincent 1 step behind, Jasper 2 steps behind him. It was raining a little, the smell of late autumn leaves through the fabric of the mask. Wet and slippery and brown, glued to the cobblestones of the square. And everywhere, eyes. People sitting in a row, drinking beer in the window of the pizzeria, and the florist and his wife in warm clothes inside the flower tent, and the 2 customers at one of the bank's ATMs who had just turned around. Real leaves and real eyes, real rain, real people, real sky and real wind. A real bank. No more practicing. There was no turning back.
Thank you, Stefan. That was amazing. So now we all know how to be bank robbers.
Yes. And how to throw a punch.
And how to throw a punch.
Shake that brain.
Yeah, let the brain bounce.
Yeah.
That's what we do with my family.
So now we have someone from France, Antoinine Varenne. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Bienvenue. And your most recent book is Loser's Corner, a thriller deeply rooted in the Algerian War. I'm reading and totally hooked on Bed of Nails, your first title. It was awarded the Prix Michel Lebrun and the Grand Prix du Jury de Sang d'Être, something with blood there, right? Some, yeah, the bloody thing, some bloody award. Varenne was born in 1973 in Paris. After earning a master's degree in philosophy, because he's French, of course, he's traveling the world and working in a variety of different jobs. He married and moved to North Carolina in 2005. 3,000 horsepower, arriving later this year, is the story of a sergeant in the East India Company who travels from Burma through Victorian London to the Wild West during the American Civil War on the trail of a man who might just be the first American serial killer. Wow.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, why not?
If you can do it. I mean, like if you want to do it.
Yeah. So please tell us about this.
So it is definitely not a thriller, as it said. I don't know who wrote that. It's
Your press agent.
it's a noir, what we call noir, which is like it's detective stories, but without. It was my second attempt of writing a detective story that would have no crime, no investigation, and no solution. So I wanted to be Paul Auster, but I couldn't. And so it's it's a story about veterans from the Algerian War who met 20 years, 40 years after the end of the war. So they're all guys, and one was fighting for Algeria, one was a draftee in the French army, and one was a guardian in a torture in a farm, remote farm, where Algerian fighters were tortured for information by the French army, and one was a prisoner, and a friendship happened between those two guys. One of them was my father, so it's his real story incorporated in, well, both of them were real, but I incorporated the story in a fiction. And the link between those two guys who hadn't seen each other for 4 years is a third character, which is a street cop who has a missed professional career as a boxer, and he's making money by beating up people. Somebody puts envelopes in his mailbox with a name and 500 euros, and he goes to beat them up, no questions asked. Because he goes to see prostitutes, and that's his only thing. He's a very solitary man. And so I'm going to read one passage, which is a little description of France in 1957, the year when my dad and the character leaves for Algeria, and then a piece where Georges, the cop and boxer, goes to see a prostitute. So there's going to be some F word as well.
We're in a bar, right? So that's right.
And we even less read as authors in France than in Sweden. I didn't know if I was going to go for like trying to have an American accent or doing very French one. I'll probably be in between. The whole of France is working 8-hour shifts to keep alive the illusion of full employment. A dream is being forged, a struggle leading to just reward for national effort, the fruits of reconstruction. The right to work, to recognition, the right to live in a decent home or not to starve to death. In 1957, everyone is working towards their dream. Hard graft, pride, the future, everything has been nationalized. Algerian oil, the French Sahara, nuclear testing. France desperately needs its last remaining colonies. They need the land and what lies beneath. They need the men, if they are to build, to progress. The paradox of colonial empire in this modern era has not yet struck people. For the past 3 years, Algeria has been laid waste by war. In February 1957, military service is increased to 30 months, and those who did national service in 55 are called up again. By April, there are 200,000 conscripts fighting under the flag, and 200,000 enlisted soldiers, most of whom have just limped back home from Indochina with their tail between their legs. De Gaulle's name is omnipresent in every conversation, every newspaper. Censorship and propaganda are no longer enough. There are the dead, the bombs, the ambushes and the reprisals in Palestro, the Battle of Algiers, the first damning news report, prisoners tortured, summary executions. The nameless war is already a dirty one. The great dream of the nation is dead, eaten away from inside by political cancer. The Fourth Republic is on its last legs. There are calls for a new constitution. The political leaders of the National Liberation Front are in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Germany, in France. A revolutionary tax is levied on immigrant Muslims, and the tax collectors use the money to arm Felagas in working-class banlieue suburbs. The MNA, supporters of Messali Hajj, clash with supporters of the National Liberation Front on the streets of Paris. Bombs are set off in Arab cafes. Men are gunned down in the streets, policemen too. Algerians disappear, the police overrun the streets, the factories, and the ghettos. In the shanty towns, all beliefs are blown away. Communities close ranks, people spy on each other. Everyone is told to stand their ground, not to make waves. On the far shores of the Mediterranean, terrorists are making their voices heard. Factory fumes mingle with the smoke of dream towns ablaze. A different struggle in pursuit of a different reward, independence. The Battle of Algiers is still raging and the psychological warfare of General Massu is being exported back to Metropolis, to the Metropolis. Arrests are mounting, and with them the police graffitied in the streets, on the factory walls. Independence, liberation, peace in Algeria. So that was France in 57. So now we're going to meet Georges, the cop and boxer, who's with Mireille in a hotel room. One of the springs creaked loudly, accompanying Georges' last breathless grunt as he clung to the horse's fat hips. For 30 seconds, he held his breath, trying to prolong the moment. His eyes squeezed shut, then opened them to see the woman straddling him. Perspiration bedded in the horse's armpits, trickled down the sides of her heavy black breast, and dripped coldly onto the boxer's pale chest. She wiped herself with the back of her hand, ran her fingers through her hair, and stretched. An uncomfortable orgasm in the stink of sweat. Planting one hand on Georges' stomach, she lifted one leg. Georges watched their genitals disengage, and his penis flopped back against his thigh. With her fingernails, she removed the condom. The latex snapped. You like that, chérie? That's a French name. That's a French word, chérie. Latex is not French, as What would he do with all these hours? The hotel room did not have a kitchen or even a minibar. Nothing but a bed with a lumpy mattress. Georges felt like a coffee. They had been naked for 10 minutes. Perfunctory foreplay. She kneading handfuls of flesh as she undressed him, murmuring sweet nothings as mechanically as a photocopier. 3 gentle strokes from her polished fingernails and she slipped on the rubber. The sex itself was unremarkable. A few moans of encouragement and a badly faked orgasm. 10 minutes. Not even as long as the haggling before they had come upstairs. Georges was lost from the start, on the stairs as he followed her plump ass. He could take punches for 15 rounds, but he could not resist a caress. He should have taken his time. 10 minutes, his eyes fixed on the cracks in the ceiling, wondering how come he hadn't been able to make the pleasure last. How old was she? 40? Maybe older. She went into the bathroom. Georges pulled the sheet over his legs and his treacherous prick. Maybe he could renegotiate, claw back half of the 400 euros, leave her the price of the fuck and go home. That sounded like a good idea. But what would he do for the rest of the night? Besides, he'd already paid for the hotel room, another 100 notes down the drain. Shit. Georges swore to himself as the woman stepped into the shower. What with the urgency and his passion spent, the illusion had been shattered. 91 kilos lying rigid on the bed like a marble sarcophagus, surrounded by flower wallpapers, worn out by 20 years of sighs and moans. Wandering through this moribund dream, he pulled several €100 notes from his wallet. His nostrils filled the mildewed smell of the room. The girl re-emerged from the bathroom, strutted round the bed with the bearing of an indolent queen. She had slipped on a faded nightie and a French pair of knickers, cleaner and plainer than the lace panties that George's stubby fingers had no time to caress. She had removed her makeup, and her hair, untied, hung disheveled around her face. Hand on her hip, her back arched, her huge breast thrust forward, she said. "You gonna order some food, chérie?" Her eyelids drooped over her big round eyes. Georges had insisted. He had offered a good price for her to spend the whole night, despite the fact that she had already worked all day. She looked like an old biddy ready for bed. And yet her plain cotton knickers turned him on. Georges stared. They were sexier than all the stockings and suspenders in the world. They rekindled a distant memory of the 16-year-old cousin he had glimpsed, half naked, during a summer holiday when he had been helpless and desperate, a 20-year-old virgin. The size 18 cotton pants had the magical quality of something picked at random from drawers stuffed with frayed underwear with loose elastic. The pants she wore when she was not turning tricks. Despite the lie, the stale taste in his mouth, the defective plumbing, Georges now had no desire to leave this hotel room. This woman had sorry, missing some. Okay. This woman had probably heard it all before, but half the whores he knew were snitches, and even here, on the far side of Paris, it was best to keep his mouth shut, or at least mention no names. The words came in clumps, tangled and confused. Georges bit his lip, stared at the blue pennies. He blushed and blurted out, "I'm a cop."
Merci, Antonine. Well, let's go back to San Francisco, or are we in Texas this time?
We're in Mexico.
Mexico! Totally wrong. Okay. Alia Voles is a daughter of San Francisco. Her writing appears in Tin House, The New York Times, Threepenny Review, Whitney Reader, New England Review, Ziziva, and other fine lit rags. She recently completed her first novel, an urban cowboy noir, in which all of your favorite characters die. And she does make a mean Mai Tai. I added that, okay? Because I know her. Okay. We've done this before. So, where is this now? In Mexico.
Yes.
Okay. Please welcome Alia Voles.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Cara. So they say that crime doesn't pay, but we all know that's totally bullshit, right? What really, really doesn't pay is writing. So, like most writers I know, I have a day job. I'm a Spanish interpreter in immigration court. Most of my work is focused on interpreting asylum hearings. And I got a wild hair up my butt leading up to this. I wanted to write something completely new to read tonight. And when I think about the genre of noir, or what modern noir looks like or should look like, where the true noir stories are coming from in today's world, for me the answer is very obvious, that they're the stories of immigrants. So this piece, which isn't so new, it's not even finished, is based loosely on an asylum case that I interpreted recently. It's called La Bocona. Bocona in Spanish means big mouth. And I'm not reading from the beginning. Where it starts, my protagonist is in an immigration detention camp in an internment center in Contra Costa in California, and this is the story of how she gets there. When Grecia's older brother, Emilio Camacho, vanished on his way home from work, leaving his Chevy in the middle of the road with keys in the ignition, everyone knew who'd made him disappear: Andres Rivera Macoya. Grecia had known Andres when he was a skinny ranch boy, a bit younger than her, all knees and elbows, swimming in the canal in hand-me-down underwear. They'd kissed once when she was 10 and he was 8, down in the shady barranca, no one watching but the tree frogs. Nuevo Portugal was tiny back then, 2 ranches and a church, no school. They were all the same kind of dirt poor. A Coca-Cola plant opened in the 80s and then shut in the 90s. The town grew over the years. Then the Zeta cartel showed up, followed by the Caballeros Templarios, everyone caught in the middle. Extortion, kidnapping, the town mechanic floating in the canal, a priest hung from a tree. Until a new group rose up from the pueblo itself, the Policías Comunitarios. And somehow Andres Rivera Macuya became their boss. It was just another gang, but they went to war against the Templarios and the Zetas, which the government didn't have the balls to do. The Comunitarios were guys you knew, wearing regular t-shirts instead of uniforms, doves painted on the doors of their trucks. They even went after corrupt police. For a while, parents were sending their sons to volunteer. But all gangs were the same, Grecia learned. Maybe all men were the same. Put money in a poor man's pocket and suddenly he was eating every peso in the country with a knife and fork. He raped and found it easier to rape the next time. His second murder was slower, more deliberate. Since the comunitarios had taken over 2 years ago, Andres hadn't been seen in town without a dozen armed men, assault rifles, grenades on their belt, something that looked to Grecia like a rocket launcher. But life went on. Little Aldosito, 2 years old, born during the violence, still smelled like the breath of God. Grecia kept her head down. She was unmarried at 28, and that seemed almost like a good thing, no husband to lose. She lived with her mother and son in a small house her father built, and they had goats and chickens and a mango tree in the yard. She sold sopes and sodas out of her kitchen. She scraped together the war tax for whoever was demanding it. Then Emilio disappeared, and the earth tilted. Grecia stumbled over familiar rocks in the dirt road outside her house as if those same rocks hadn't been there for years. But there was nothing to do. When the comunitarios disappeared somebody, that person was gone. Better not to look. Emilio's wife, Lupe, was insane with worry. At least ask Don Andres to give Emilio back. She was crying, and she looked so young, just a snot face, a pet with sparkly blue fingernails. Grecia knew her brother to be a good man, but dumb in the way of most men. He liked his women young and stupid, so he always felt in charge. Maybe a stupid woman is fine when everything's going well, but when there's a problem, a stupid woman becomes dangerous. Cállate, Grecia said. Estás loca. Lupe wouldn't listen. She took her questions all over town, prying. And for what? Everyone knew what had happened to Emilio. He'd refused to pay an extortion or messed with one of Andres's whores or argued over a parking space. The details didn't matter. If Emilio was still alive, doubtful after a week, Andres had him. But Lupe was going to get them all murdered. If you won't talk to Andres, Lupe hissed, I'll go to the police. Talking to the cops was the fastest shortcut to the hereafter. Since Emilio's disappearance, Grecia had felt her skin tightening around her body, a slow but relentless compression that would leave her the size of a pea. Even so, she wouldn't have done anything if Lupe hadn't pushed like that. Grecia put on a clean dress and pinned her hair into a twist. She applied makeup for the first time in a while, thinking of it as war paint. Though her hands shook so badly, she had to wash the eyeliner off twice and start fresh. She walked across town to the abandoned Coca-Cola plant the comunitarios used as headquarters. It was a large metal structure, gray with a giant red swirl across the front, paint discolored and peeling. No trees grew within several yards of the compound, as if the building itself were toxic. She'd heard rumors they kept prisoners in the offices. Maybe Lupe was right. Maybe Emilio was alive in there. An armed guard met her at the door. It took her a moment to recognize Francisca Muraya's son. What do you want? He said. I'd like to speak with Don Andres. What for? I'll tell him myself. I knew your mother, you know. Don Andres doesn't meet with trash. That took her aback. He'll see me, she said. We're old friends. The kid looked Grecia up and down, and she gave him the same look right back. Not even a grown man, peach fuzz on his chin. I feel sorry for your mother, she said. Francisca didn't go north to work just so you could become a thug. She left, he said. What the fuck does it matter? That bitterness. But he told her to wait and disappeared into the compound. When he returned several minutes later, he wouldn't meet her eye. Follow me. The air conditioning shocked Grecia's arms into chicken skin. Beer bottles littered the first hallway, but not the second or third. As they wound deeper, the compound got cleaner and colder and richer, leaving the hot squalor of Nuevo Portugal outside. Andres sat behind a massive desk. There were paintings on the wall behind him, a landscape of a place Grecia had never seen, maybe Europe, and a still life of apples and flowers. Tasteful. Also, a Tecate poster with a bikini model squeezing a beer can between her tits. Not so tasteful. Andres looked fat without the bulletproof vest cinching his gut. He was growing a thin mustache like the matinee idol Pedro Infante. But there was an echo of the goofy kid in his features. Que bonita sorpresa, he said, gesturing for her to sit. I hope there's something I can do for you, Gracia, to make the walk worthwhile. I've come to ask you for my brother. He looked theatrically over both shoulders and then pointed at himself. Me? Whatever Emilio did to anger you, we can work it out. What shit are you implying, mujer? Gracia's eye drifted to a stain on the concrete floor, reddish brown, blood. Please, Andres, everyone knows you're in charge here. You have a big mouth, Gracia. A big fucking mouth. Muy bocona. He pressed his index finger against the desktop, whitening the knuckle. How dare you accuse me? Please let him go. We're done, and fuck you. Suddenly, Francisca's son was gripping Gracia's shoulders and yanking her out of the chair. Keep running that mouth of yours, Andres said, and you will suffer in ways you can't imagine. Gracia staggered back down the hallway, the kid silent behind her. Outside, the air was hot and foul like the inside of a mouth. She stumbled twice on her way back to the road. Not until she was beyond eyeshot of the compound did she let the sobs come, doubled over, unsure whether to vomit or scream. She was certain of one thing. Emilio was dead. Evening was falling, the late sun painting the trees orange and blue, when the comunitarios showed up outside her house. 2 black explorers, white doves on the door. Gracia was whisking masa for tomorrow's sopes when she saw them through her window. Her guts hit the plank floor. Take Aldosito right now, she hissed to her mom. In the closet, close the door. Ya, ya. They piled out of 2 trucks, a dozen men armed for battle, and walked right in the front door. Their smell filled the house. Sour, animal, metal. So many weapons in her kitchen. Gracia took small sips of air. Tranquila, watch your mouth. What can I do for you, muchachos? She said, wiping her hands. A yellow-eyed kid with acne on his forehead was the first to speak. Dame un sope de pollo. Gracia felt nauseous with relief. They wanted food. The next one ordered steak, sodas, chicharrones, pulparindo. Diosito, don't let me screw up any orders. She focused on the work, praying her mother wouldn't come out to help. Sweat trickled down her thighs, the heady aroma of grilling meat eclipsing the comunitarios' stink. The boys ate standing, growing louder as they relaxed into the meal, slurping and chewing and cussing. Then Andres emerged from the jungle of limbs. ¿Y cómo está mi amiguita? Gracia froze. Meat sizzled on the grill, but she didn't move to flip it. Andres opened his wallet, flashing a fat wad of cash, and whipped out a handful of pesos. Maybe it was enough, maybe not even close. She forced a smile and shook her head. A gift from the house, Don Andres. No seas tonta, he said, waving the money. You think I want your charity? Of course not, perdóname. As he placed the cash in her hand, Andres extended his damp middle finger along the length of Gracia's wrist and held it there, pressing her vein. Gracia could feel her pulse pounding under his touch. Muy bocona, he said, drawing out the syllables, demasiada. A mouth that big is good for only one thing. He grabbed his crotch through his slacks and laughed. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for reading, and the authors are going to be right outside in those tents to sign books.